Huge missed opportunity in the marketing to not put Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We ain't too old for this shit. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my review of the new and highly anticipated 5th installment, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This is a movie that has been a big topic of discussion in my circles for quite a few years. You know, there was like a year or so where they were talking about rebooting it and who was going to be cast as Indiana Jones, and then they put the kibosh on that and said, only Harrison Ford will ever be Indiana Jones. And then followed that up with an announcement, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to make a 5th film. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that most people that are fans of Indiana Jones were extremely disappointed in the 4th film, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I, for one, don't hate the movie. It's definitely the weakest of the 4, but most people really hate it, really do not like that movie. And so the expectations for a 5th film have been met with a lot of, we'll just say, skepticism. Is it going to be better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Can Harrison Ford still pull off the role at 80 years old? Can anybody but Steven Spielberg direct an Indiana Jones film? So many questions that we all want to have answered when we walk into this movie. So I was lucky enough to check it out at a press screening, had to hike my ass back up to Atlanta yesterday to check this thing out. I'm going to give you all of my spoiler-free thoughts. I assure you I'm not going to talk about anything that has not already been talked about in the marketing. But before we dive into all of that, while all of us are not 80 years old taking on Nazis and swashbuckling globe-trotting adventures, our everyday life still shows a little wear and tear on our skin. And so if skincare is a growing concern for you, be sure to check out the sponsor of today's video, Geology. As I've gotten older, my skincare routine has grown to be more of a focus and concern, and the company that has allowed me to reach my skincare goals the easiest has definitely been Geology. Geology is a 22-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company with over 6,000 5-star reviews. They create simple and effective skincare and hair care routines that are all customized just for you. Their products are built around just a handful of powerful, proven ingredients that have been trusted by dermatologists for decades. Because at the end of the day, skincare is science and shouldn't feel like a gamble. Geology Skincare helps you fight acne, reduce oiliness, prevent wrinkles, combat dark and puffy under eyes, have smoother hydrated skin, and even target signs of aging. And now the best in the skincare game has expanded their reach into hair care and body care with co-washes, shampoos, conditioners, body washes, deodorants, and much more. Easily my favorite of their new product line is their deodorants. I love the natural smells and the fact that they go on clean and don't come off onto your clothes like all of those cheaper brands, but I've really been enjoying their hair care products here recently, and the confidence knowing that I'm washing my hair with natural products and not a bunch of chemicals. Just click the link in the video description and take their 30-second diagnostic quiz. Tell them about your skin and your goals, and a team of dermatologists will design a personalized routine just for you that is shipped directly to your door. And right now, for a limited time, Geology is hooking you up with an insane offer. Use my code CODY70 or scan the QR code on the screen, and they will give you an exclusive 70% off of their award-winning skincare trial set. That's $50 of products for only 15 bucks. On top of that, you can save big on the add-on products of your choice when you add it to your trial. This is one of the best offers that you are going to see, so be sure to get it before it's gone. So take charge of your skin, body, and hair today by using Geology. That's Geologie. And thank you to Geology for partnering with me on today's sponsorship. So as far as Indiana Jones Dial of the Destiny, I think this is a movie that is going to 100% live or die with each individual viewer depending on their expectations. If you walk into this expecting this to be as good, as impactful, as iconic as the original trilogy, I think the vast majority, if not the entirety of people that walk in with that expectation are going to be highly disappointed with this movie. If you walk in with the expectation of just having a good, solid, entertaining, classic Indiana Jones adventure that is at least better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I think you'll be happy with this.
Turn left! Turn left! Indy, listen to me, no!
I ain't no Ken's here!
And going along with talking about expectations, I highly encourage you, if you're somebody that is excited about this movie, that has been anticipating it for a while, please go check this thing out, form your own opinion. Try your best not to let reviews, even my review, mold your expectations for this movie, because unfortunately with a film like this, the nature of the beast is that there's going to be two extremely passionate groups, one that really wants this movie to fail miserably and one that really wants this thing to highly succeed. And I think you're going to see a lot of reviews reflect that. I'm already seeing some early responses reflect that, to where some people are calling it a dumpster fire, the worst thing ever, worse than Kingdom of Crystal Skull, it ruined their life, and that's absolute bullshit. And then I think the people that like this movie are going to see that ridiculous hyperbolic negativity, and they're going to overcompensate by overpraising the movie, when this is not a movie that stands up against the original trilogy at all, but it is a good, solid Indiana Jones adventure. So with that being said, the positives regarding Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I think this movie does a really good job at capturing that classic Indiana Jones entertainment, with all of the different ingredients that are brought here, with the look of the movie, the way that it's shot, the color, and even the way that the action is kind of presented, and I'll get a little bit more into action later. The John Williams score coming back and him doing a fantastic job yet again, and just that score alone is such an important integral piece to the Indiana Jones experience. Having John Williams come back in full force is something that absolutely adds to the entertainment value of this movie. Having just an Indiana Jones adventure with this MacGuffin item that the Nazis are after, and he's got to beat them to it, and it spans across this globe-trotting adventure. It's all of those classic elements that were very prevalent and very well done in the original trilogy that we have been craving as Indiana Jones fans. And some of those elements I think they did pretty decent in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but a lot of them they did not. They do a better job, a significantly better job in this movie at capturing the magic of those original three films. And of course, not the least of which of those integral pieces is Harrison Ford himself as Indiana Jones, and I think he does a pretty damn good job at recapturing the character here and bringing a little bit of a different flavor, being that he's, at the end of his life, the end of his career, in retirement, and there's certainly aspects of his characterization of Indiana Jones and the way that the movie utilizes him that certainly brings that into the forefront in a way to where it's not like poking fun at him, it's not making it the blunt of a joke, but it's certainly acknowledging that he is a different person than he was in the original movies when he was in his 30s.
Get back!
And I think that Harrison Ford, you can feel his passion for the character throughout the movie. You can feel his desire to want to bring everything full circle and come back and do a good entry that is more pleasing for the fans, to cap off this character, to cap off this franchise, to maybe even cap off his career to a certain degree. And so the action, the attitude, the snark, the back and forth, and the humor, all of those elements that we have grown to love about this character, Harrison does a great job at bringing those elements back and giving us one last good adventure with Indy. And I'll also take time to praise the fact that this movie has a really nice amount of callbacks and nostalgia and Easter eggs for the fans. I walked into this actually expecting and a little bit worried that it was going to be a bit heavy-handed with all of that, just because that tends to be the case nowadays with most movies. We love the remember berries, and sometimes they just go too far with it. And I really appreciated how reserved this movie was about telling its own story, being its own thing, while once in a while taking a moment to respect the past and wink at the audience and giving us those heartwarming moments or callback lines or visuals or references that's going to warm the heart of anybody that has been a fan of this franchise for any amount of time. I think that the amount here was respectable, but I also think the way that they did it and the moments that they did it was really well done. Moving on to the mixed aspects, the first thing I want to talk about is the action. Now, all of my mixed aspects that I'm going to be discussing, I do lean mixed positive. I am overall positive on this movie, but there are certain things that I don't know how it's going to feel with me when I rewatch this film, and I think more people are going to walk out kind of in the middle on some of these elements. And regarding the action, there is a good amount of it. It's that classic Indiana Jones action where you've got fist fights and gunfights and whip cracking and swinging and jumping across vehicles and running across trains, all those classic old school Indiana Jones action sequences that we would want to see here. And I think for the most part, they pull it off pretty well. The two difficulties that they have regarding the action sequences, one of which is obvious, and we walked into this movie knowing this was going to be something they're going to have to work around, is just the age of Harrison Ford. He's 80 years old, so he cannot physically do a lot of these stunts, a lot of these action sequences himself, so they're going to have to use a lot of CGI and body doubles and stunt doubles to convincingly put these action sequences together, whether it's a fight scene or a jumping or a swinging. And that is something that handicaps it just slightly, because you can kind of see the movie trickery there. It doesn't have that classic practical effect, real in-camera quality that a lot of the original stunts and the original action sequences in the first three films had. And I didn't really expect that. So it wasn't something that really disappointed me, but it is something that when you stack it amongst the rest of this franchise is something that isn't as convincingly done here as it was in the past. And while I think they do a significantly better job at minimizing the amount of CGI that they use in comparison to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, there's still quite a bit of CGI at play here, and at the risk of being redundant, it just doesn't have that practical quality that I love so much about the original sequences and about the original action and all of the set design and everything from the original films. There's so much here that is definitely modern movie making, which again, I walked in expecting. The other mixed element here is the character of Helena Shaw. She is Indiana Jones' goddaughter, and it's in the trailer that she kind of is the one pushing him towards the seeking of this dial of destiny and kind of backstabs him and betrays him pretty early on. Again, that's in the trailer. And their relationship and their back and forth throughout most of this movie is antagonistic. And so it was a bit of a struggle for me to warm up to her character, because she is a younger, more capable, and so much snarkier character that is now shoved into this situation with the hero that we're here to follow. And so a lot of their interaction throughout the first 2/3 or so of this movie is antagonistic and bickering, and it kind of almost makes Indiana Jones seem like this crotchety old man every single time they get into a little tiff. But by the end of the movie, I started to warm to her character more. Her personality started to grow on me a bit more. Their relationship started to grow on me a bit more. And so I think when I rewatch this, I'll have a better time with her character. But on my first watch, I spent most of the runtime of this movie thinking, I don't really like this character. But the biggest thing that I'm mixed on in regards to this film is just the question of, is it necessary? I think that if we didn't have Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the legacy of that fourth film and the low point that it left the majority of Indiana Jones fans, I don't know if this movie ever would have been put into production. I think that the original trilogy is beloved so much that that probably could have just stood the test of time as a trilogy that is untouchable and nobody wanted to go back to it. But because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull happened, they felt the need that we gotta at least give them a better entry to end this off on. And I respect that, and I think most fans probably would want that. They would want to walk out on a higher note than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But I walked out of this movie, and while I had a good time with it, while I enjoyed it more than the fourth film, I still had this feeling of, but I'm only really ever gonna rewatch the original trilogy. As much as I like elements of this, as much as I'll probably enjoy rewatching this in the future, is it a movie that I completely need? And I don't really know. And now moving on to the negatives. The first one is one that I was actually pretty surprised that I did not like, because this is an element that I was pretty sure was going to be one of the better elements of the film, and that's Mads Mikkelsen's villain. Now, I think Mads does everything he can with this character. There's just not a whole lot to work with. He's just kind of a generic Nazi scientist, and he's pursuing the dial of destiny for his own nefarious needs, and Indiana Jones is trying to beat him to it throughout the entire film. And so I was just waiting for something to come out about this character or some element of this character to really pop, and I just never really got that. And for somebody that has played some of the best villains that I have seen in recent memory of Mads Mikkelsen, I was a little disappointed that they would cast him for a character that is so vanilla. Something that you're probably going to see every single review, whether it's positive or negative, point out is the de-aging CGI. Now, I was actually surprised how good it looked in the trailer, and it's because in short little still images, it actually looks pretty damn convincing. In motion, I thought it looked terrible. This is just a form of technology that's just not there yet. This is very similar to the early 2000s when they started to really figure out what they could do with CGI, and then they just started overusing it and everything before they really fine-tuned it, and now we look back at a lot of that use of technology and we go, oh, that looks bad. And we're going to have that with the de-aging thing for probably another decade before it really starts to look convincing. And so the entire opening 15 minutes of this movie is like a flashback cold open. And the shame is that sequence, that opening, is the most classic Indiana Jones experience that this film gives you. Like the whole opening 15, you're like, dude, this is it. This is classic Indiana Jones. But every time it focuses on his face, you're pulled out of it because it just doesn't look real. It doesn't look natural. Now that flashback sequence is very integral to the story, so I don't know what other way they could have done it without using that technology. So maybe they were just handcuffed, but the de-aging technology is just not there yet to use for such an extended sequence. Now my last two negatives, I'm only going to talk briefly and vaguely on because they deal with the last 15-20 minutes of the movie, and all I will say is that every single one of these Indiana Jones film has had a supernatural element that is eventually brought into the story, and for most people it seemed that the alien element in Kingdom of Crystal Skull was just way too much, way too far into the supernatural and not grounded enough for the feeling of this franchise. And I would say that the supernatural element in Dial of Destiny is along that same vein. Maybe not quite as much as the alien, but pretty damn close. And so that's going to be an element I think a lot of people are going to be very divided on. And I also felt that the movie wrapped up a little too cleanly, which I can't talk specifically on whatsoever. But the last 5-7 minutes of the film, while there's certainly some heartwarming elements to things that happen, there was a lot of questions that I had about how we got from here to here. Overall, guys, I think if you're an Indiana Jones fan and you walk in with realistic expectations to this movie, you're going to have a good, solid time. It's not as good as the original trilogy. Do not expect it to be as good as the original trilogy. But for me, it's definitely better than the fourth film, and it's a solid enough adventure to end this character and to end this franchise on. And so while it wasn't a complete home run, while it wasn't this complete return to form, it was good enough, and I'm satisfied. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you want to check out my other 2023 new release reviews, I'm going to put them in a playlist right here. I'm also going to put my review of The Flash that released this weekend right up here. I am going to be reviewing the other 4 Indiana Jones films over the next 2 weeks, so be sure to like, share, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of that. Check out Geology down in the video description below and snag that deal before it's gone. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.